Mikayla. Mikayla,
yes.
Are you there, sweetie?
Yes, hello. How are you? Lovely to hear your stories and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so what have you been doing since we last chatted? Anything exciting?
Well, I've been doing lots, actually, and I've just been sort of scribbling some notes as you two were talking, thinking, well, what have I done in the last month? And I have to admit, since we've last sort of been talking, I found the beginning of the year, I found myself a bit sort of manic and throwing myself into work, which was a big sort of project I took on. And I suddenly sort of reached a point where I thought, the initial phase of it's over, so now where am I at? And in the last month or so, I've just been really focusing on enjoying, and I know this sounds just so simple, but the present moment and getting that sort of balance between, well, when you're doing something, so when I'm at work, focus on that. When you're at home, you focus on the kids, and it's a sort of bit mindful, but it's the same as being present. But what I found is I have just been at the right place at the right time, bumping into just the right people, coincidentally, calling it, sort of being in sync. And it's just happening time and time again, almost daily, that I'll bump into someone and I just go, hi, I've met you at just the right time. I mean, for example, yesterday I was at the shops for my kids. A friend was walking out and she said she just bought her kid a bike. And I said, well, where's your bike? She said, well, I can't take it home in my car. And, of course, if I hadn't been there just at that split time as she was sort of literally leaving the shops, of course, I said, well, I've got space in mine, threw it in the back of mine and, dropped it off on her place at her place on the way home. So, what goes around comes around, and I've just had these, people have helped me and I've helped them, and you're like, wow, things are, it's been a good month considering the beginning of the year was hectic. So, there's my story.
Very good.
It's funny what you say about friends. I had a week, probably back in March, I think it was. It was close to when I was heading off up north. And the week beforehand, I was running around before the trip, getting ready for the trip. And I kept on thinking like, oh, I'd see something and I'd say, I haven't seen so-and-so for like a year. I wonder when I'm going to see them again. And no joke, within the hour, that person will have, like, I've bumped into them at the shopping centre, or they've rung me, or they've left me an email. And this happened like 5 days in a row with 5 different people. And I remember thinking to myself, was I manifesting that? Because I was having the thought each time, like, oh, I've really got to catch up with so-and-so, I've really got to do this, or I've really got to do that. And then it would just happen. So explain that. Sheila, you who know everything.
She who learns something new every day, or thinks she's missed out.
I do learn something new.
I see that as your sixth auric field, outer energy field, should turn on at conception. And if it doesn't, you need someone crazy like me to turn it on for you. But it's intuitive in women and telepathic in men. So you're thinking about someone and you bump into them. So that, they may have been thinking about you and you're picking up on that thought, and then it's no coincidences in my perspective. But yes, you may also be manifesting it. And as you probably remember, Sharon, I'm not into the law of attraction, but I've had some similar things happen in the last few months, more so recently than they have, say, in any other year, where I've thought about something and it's basically manifested. Thinking a few weeks ago, I need to find a phone number to buy one of those big bales of hay for my 4-legged grass munchers, and my son turned up with a bale of hay on the back of the ute from his boss. And I said, oh, I'll give you the $50. And he said, no, can't remember what his boss's name is, but he said it was the bottom of the pile, so don't worry about paying it for it because some of it, won't be any good. So thank you, universe. That was $50 I saved. But I also didn't have to chase up and get a very large rectangular bale of hay delivered, which would have cost me more if I'd have been paying delivery. So, other things that I'd thought about that suddenly happened. So I'm not sure whether I like the word flow, Sharon. When we're in that flow, as Mikayla's saying, you sometimes just find that things do present themselves or do flow or whatever it might be, if you're willing to accept them perhaps as well.
Yes, I think that's exactly it. Well, before we go any further, I should just introduce Mikayla formally, our guest for this show. Mikayla is an inspirational author. Well, that's what I like to refer to her as inside the magazine, but she has a number of titles. Mikayla's will help you to find your calm and to conquer your chaos. She draws on 40 years of life experience that includes growing up in Hong Kong, traveling the world, continuously self-developing through study and advanced management diploma. She has an advanced management diploma, sorry. Mikayla has finally cracked that code, but it might not be the code that you think. How to find your calm, get into control no matter what life throws at you, and use in the circumstances in front of you to forge a legacy that you will be proud of and a life that feels good. And I think that, Mikayla, is what every woman I know wants. Don't you think, Sheila?
Absolutely.
I could do with a lot of calm. Usually on a Monday. Monday is my day when I kind of, I think I do what Mikayla said earlier at the beginning of the year. Monday's my New Year's resolution day where I think for the week. I've got all this stuff to do. Monday's a great start. Monday I always achieve a lot, and then Tuesday I go back to normal. What about you, Sheila? Mikayla, are you the same, or are you a little pocket rocket?
I'm a bit of a pocket rocket, and I write lists about lists of things that I'm going to sort of do and achieve, and there's work ones and other things. So I like to achieve and just tick things off the list. But, not everyone has to do these massive lists. I mean, they can just be really simple lists. And even on a Sunday or something, you might wake up and think, well, what do I want to do today? It'd be really nice if I could just do that little bit of gardening, or I might do a little bit of baking, and even just writing that sort of list of, if I did that today, I feel really good at the end of the day. And ticking things off the list, to me, is just calming the chaos, because you just sort of go, instead of getting to the end of the day and going, I don't know if I achieved anything, it's really useful just to at least tick off even those minor small things that you did do and go, look what I achieved. Might not be everything on the list, but even if you've knocked off some of the things that, it's a mental sort of, yay, I did it.
Yes, and I do like that confirmation too. I'm a big list maker as well, as you probably worked out from the run sheet. Which I just realised, I don't think I've sent them to Sheila. I've got to start including you on the email thing, Sheila.
Okay.
I didn't realise till today you haven't been getting the run sheet.
No, but that's okay.
No, you should have told me ages ago. I've been using the same email group, you see.
Yep, not a problem.
Not even thinking about it. But anyway, let's talk about the topics today. Now, because there's only the three of us, I think we're actually going to get through a couple of these, which is great. But the first topic is bullying, and I've kind of given it a funny title, like hit back or run, ? Sheila, I know, has actually already hosted a show on bullying earlier this month or last month. Is that true, Sheila? I think I saw something on that.
Oh, I think it was a while ago, probably a few months ago. But, I was looking at bullying, and I'd spoken about it, I think, some years ago as well, where it's, we think bullying and we tend to think, kids in school and stuff like that, but it's so much more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's I don't want to exaggerate it, but it's pretty rampant in office life. And I was a consultant for many years, so I probably bounced around 50 or so companies in my working life, and every one of them there was an element of bullying, and it was I was surprised. Of course, in those days, because I haven't been in the workforce for about 8 years, it wasn't really recognized as bullying. It was whereas today, I think with all the PC stuff that's come in, I think it would be called out, more readily than it has been. But let's go through the basic definition for our listeners. So bullying is an ongoing misuse of power in relationships through repeated verbal, physical or social behaviour that causes physical or psychological harm. I'm just going to read that again so everyone's got it. Bullying is an ongoing misuse of power in relationships through repeated verbal, physical or social behaviour that causes physical or psychological harm. It can involve an individual or a group misusing their power over one or more persons. Bullying can happen in person or online, and it can be obvious or overt. So, sorry, it can be obvious or hidden, overt or covert. Bullying of any form or for any reason can have long-term effects on those involved, including bystanders, so not even just the bullied person. Single incidents and conflict or fights between equals, whether in person or online, are not defined as bullying, though. So, which is interesting. Anyway, let's get to the question. So we might kick off with Mikayla. Mikayla, have you been bullied, and was it in school, work, or a social environment, if you have been?
I think, as you said, and I'd be surprised if anyone hasn't actually faced it when they really do think about it. So I think I'll discuss the word bullying a bit later, but I think, we've all faced it. I'd say we all have. So absolutely, I've faced it. And the one time that really hit me when I was reading this is because I've delved back, over my life for various reasons. And there's one particular incident that really rocks me in a sense, and I realize how much I could have been bullied, but I squashed it almost immediately without even realizing it. So the story is basically, I was in about year 3. I was severely asthmatic as a child, to the point that my parents weren't even sure I'd make it to school age, put it that way. So by the time of year 3, I missed about half of that year of schooling because I was homesick for most of the time. When I was at school, of course, you can imagine trying to build friendships, and that was quite hard. And at school, the one playground was a grass playground, but because of drought and everything, it ended up being a dust sort of bowl. So I wasn't allowed to go and play. So when I was at school, I wasn't allowed to play with the whole school. So I ended up being by myself at lunchtimes in a separate area at the school. And I remember kids saying to me, "Oh, you're such a loner, you're sitting by yourself." And like I said, without realizing it, I turned that around straight away. And I was like, what do you mean? I've got the best lunchtimes in the world. I have no teachers supervising me, and I get to do what I want. And without realizing it, they never really bothered me after that. Of course, deep down, I was like, I want to be like the other kids. I want to go and play with them. But I wasn't going to show them that. And after telling them how fabulous my lunchtimes were, they wished they were me, not the other way around.
So you kind of turned it around on them, which is a clever technique.
Absolutely, but without realizing it, if you know what I mean, because, at the time, bullying at my age, that wasn't really a term, it was, and I look back on that and I think, that's what I actually did by turning that around sort of straight away. And there's been other incidences in my life where I've just turned around and said, well, actually, that's just your opinion, not mine, and realized that by turning the power around straight away has actually stopped any further conflict.
Well, you were obviously a lot more advanced than I was. I punched a girl in the nose.
I've wanted to, I'm sure, but
I think I was in year 5 in England, and I think it was after a number of being picked on in the schoolyard, and I think in England in those days, basically you were told, what you've got to do is just, punch them once and they'll leave you alone and stand up to them. So basically I stood there almost peeing myself and basically just popped her on the nose. But it was awful. I learned a really big lesson by doing that, though, even though I was following what I was being told to do by my parents, very misguided parents now. I felt awful because her nose started to bleed, and then everyone thought I was a bully because I'd beaten her, even though she'd been, beating me, basically. She hadn't physically touched me, but she had been, harassing me for weeks. So I think I got suspended too. I had a detention or something. So I learned a big lesson about, that was the last time I think I've ever physically assaulted anybody in my life. How about you, Sheila? Have you been bullied?
Yes, very, very much so. And as we're saying, social bullying, I think if we relate social bullying into families as well, many people are actually bullied in family situations. My mother was an incredible bully and quite violent. So, you know, I grew up with that keep your distance, basically. There wasn't any physical manifestation of love or anything else. And, you know, the slightest thing could spark off a rage, etc. So, I didn't see it as bullying as a child, but by the time I got to be an adult, I was very aware that that's how it had been. And you often in relationships, male, female, 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 male, male, whatever, you can find bullying as well. And some of the online bullying, Sharon and Mikayla, is quite profound as well.
Oh yeah, it's shocking stuff. I mean, I spend my life online doing stuff, and if I dare to actually give an opinion, I can guarantee at least 2 or 3 people will insult me for my opinion, because my opinions obviously aren't the norm. But no one knows how to gracefully have an alternate opinion to people anymore. It's all attack. Have you noticed?
Oh, it's disgusting what's said online, and I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it also comes down to, would that person say that to you, face to face? And most of the time, they wouldn't say it face to face. And as I try and teach my kids, well, why would you write that? Oh, it's disgusting what people think they can get away with, and I think that they think that they're behind a computer screen or phone, whatever it is, and therefore you can say what you want to say. Well, I don't think social media should be the public forum to say anything, especially if it degrades somebody else.
Yeah, well, basically all you have to do is put an opinion up. There is at least, 50% of the population that disagrees with that opinion, and they're all ready to jump on. I just love it when I give an opposing opinion on a post that's not pro whatever I am, and the first thing I'm always called is, oh, you must be a troll. And I'm thinking, because I have this image of the 80s troll doll in my head.
Love that.
But I'm not, basically I have to explain. I say, no, I'm not trolling. I'm actually giving an alternate opinion so that you all can become better enlightened, basically. But people don't understand that at all. And but I suppose, is that technically bullying, what I'm doing?
No, but I think you're being bullied in return.
Oh, definitely. But I was just thinking there, maybe I should stop doing it. But then people in the world will go uneducated without my opinion. So we can't have that, can we, Sheila? People need to know what Sharon thinks.
Well, I had an interesting conversation with my son the other week. I had words with him and his partner, which didn't go down very well. And it's not often I open my mouth and say anything in that perspective. And he came out just before they've moved and they were leaving, and he said, I have explained that Mum is the only mother I've got. She's entitled to her opinion and she's entitled to voice it, and I suggest you would not want her for an enemy. So I thought that was like, oh, wow. Thank you, darling. Does that mean I scare you too?
I think anyone with an opinion of their own or thinks for themselves these days scares people. That's the sad part about this. I mean, I remember, in my 20s, I'd have dinner parties and we'd have full-on debates over the table, and it was on stupid stuff in a way. It wasn't even. But now everyone, all they ever want to talk about is the 3 things that you're not supposed to talk about, which is politics, sex, and religion. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
And that's all people want to talk about now. They always. It's just so annoying.
But have we lost the art of communication and having conversations? Where you're right. I mean, having your opinion is one thing, but when you personally attack somebody else because of their opinion, well, that's a different story. So you're exactly right. Can you have like we're having now, a debate, a discussion? Yes, absolutely. You're entitled to your views. Hopefully I'm entitled to mine, and we can have an open, discussion about it. When it comes down to personally attacking someone because they have that view, that's when it just gets taken to a whole different level.
Yes. Yes, and you see that so well. I see it every day on social media. I mean, there's some people just stop posting, I think, because they know that it doesn't matter what you'll see. They have one post, an opinion, and then there'll be like 20 posts following, all saying nasty things about it, and you'll just think, well, I know why they stopped. Because you imagine posting something up. I mean, this week how over in the States, the masterpiece baker, the baker who is very religious, he refused to bake a wedding cake, and he's an artist, and design it for a gay couple, based on for religious reasons. Anyway, he actually won. He took it to the Supreme Court after the Colorado state court system had basically penalized him. He took it to the Supreme Court, and we're talking 3 years later, and the Supreme Court came out and basically slapped the Colorado state courts over the hands and said, you can't mess with somebody's religious freedom, their expression. And I think on one of the posts in that, I basically said, oh, well, congratulations. And that's all I said. I was just congratulating the baker on winning the case. And straight away, people make the assumption that, one, I'm a homophobe. And I don't know how they got that from congratulations to the, and two, that, what else did they say? I think I got called racist, and I don't even know how racist came into that. I mean, do you? I mean, everyone was white. Everyone looked white for me. But I just find it, being called things like racist and a homophobe is bullying, isn't it?
Well, I would think it is, yeah.
But then is their comment about you or about them, though? So you kind of go, well, that's an interesting comment that you've put back, that I'm racist. Are you talking about me or you? And it's just interesting, isn't it? You think, well, your opinion, my opinion.
Well, as I said, all I'd written on the post was congratulations. I mean, there is all they then went and, basically cast me as a racist homophobe. I mean, my brother-in-law's gay. I'm not a homophobe. In fact, I'm not, and I'm definitely not racist. I am against cults, though. I must, so if you're going to call me anything, call me a cultist. Is it? Oh no, actually, that's different, isn't it? Cultist. That would mean I was actually one of them. No, I don't want to be a cultist. What's the cultophobe? Cultophobe? I'll be a cultophobe. See, English. So basically, we've all experienced some bullying then, which is great. So we're all authorities on this subject from that. There was another adult bullying experience I had, which I've looked back on, and I've questioned for years whether it was bullying or just more. Is ostracization from a group that you work with, is that bullying?
I would say so.
Yeah, I came into a large legal firm, into the IT area, and I was like 21, fresh out, and I was so keen. I do everything and work very hard and all this. But in the same group, everybody else was 15 years older than me, and they were all within like 5 years of each other. And, I worked at this organisation for about 8 years. And during that time, I used to find that they would always give me like the shittier jobs, or push me out, or, wouldn't invite me to lunch and things like that. And when I'd ask them, can I join you? They'd say things like, you're not really our age group, so you won't understand or you won't get our jokes. What do you think about that? Is that bullying?
Well, from my perspective, Sharon, yes. I don't know about Mikayla. It's segregation, isn't it? It's taking you out of the group dynamic and setting you apart. So if we saw that as a form of bullying, again, it's one of the things, I suppose, that's open to question. But if they weren't segregating you then and being inclusive, then you wouldn't have the thought of being bullied, would you?
No, and like at the time, as I said, this is like 30 years ago. I didn't really think about it at all. I just thought, well, yeah, they're older, and it wasn't really that big an issue because I was so busy. I had so much to do anyway. But there were times when it would have been nice to actually go to a Friday lunch with somebody, Mm. What do you think, Mikayla?
I think my 2 cents on this is that, in all fairness, I don't really understand the word bullying. And when I say it to that, I think it's an umbrella term for so many different aspects that happen, day to day. So as you said, is that bullying? I don't really know. I remember when my kids were little and at primary school, and it was drilled into them, someone would say, oh, can I sit with you at lunchtime? And you said no. Well, that's bullying because you're not allowed to let that kid sit with you. And I thought, well, back when we were kids, you didn't have to sit with everybody and you wanted your little group that you sat with. So were you the bully or were you not? And I'm devil's sort of advocate, but also my opinion is I think the word bullying has been taken, as I said, to an umbrella term that you can label everything as bullying. So I admit I'm a bit confused with some of it. Sometimes people are just not very nice. Are they directly attacking you is another thing. And then should you fit into every group because, you feel like you want to belong? And then that's along the lines of being entitled to your opinion, but does that mean you follow the group mentality because everyone's opinion is this? So, like I said, I'm just a little confused with the term. I mean, even as you said in the definition, a single incident of conflict between equals is not bullying. But then the definition on, sort of a Wikipedia or just a quick Google search is a person who uses strength or influence to harm or intimidate those who are weaker. So there comes down to the question of... Sorry?
And that can be one-on-one.
Exactly. It can be one-on-one, or it could be a group, or it could be this. So are they harming you or trying to intimidate you? Did you feel you were weaker? I just don't really understand the term bullying, and I think it's just been blown out of proportion. And we're so PC that, we all have to be nice to each other, but actually we're so not that...
Yeah, we're not.
No.
It's funny you should say that, because I had this same discussion with my husband earlier today. I was just saying how I was explaining to him a documentary I'd seen, which I can't remember the name of it, but it's a fantastic documentary. And basically it takes like year 8s, year 9s, and he puts them in all different situations and sees how they react as a group and as individuals. And basically, at the end of the documentary, you understand that biologically, everyone is racist, everybody is tribal, everybody looks to the prettiest or the strongest person in the group to be the leader. Anyone that's short and ugly basically is seen as the runt of the group and not picked. And and a lot of this stuff is stuff that we're told to, through political correctness, that we can fix. But this program, this documentary I watched, basically said it's just inbuilt in us and we aren't actually very nice. And when you said that before, that just all came back to me as well. So I think you're right. I think that's why a lot of people at the moment are pushing back on political correctness, because it just doesn't sit with our psyches. what do you think, Sheila? Am I being too harsh on the human race, or is it spot on?
No, I think you're spot on, Sharon. And if we look at the animal kingdom, it's the same thing, isn't it? You know, the weaker animal in the, if we look at a lion pack, for example, or a wolf pack, from a tribal perspective, when they move, the weaker members of the pack go first because they set the pace, because otherwise if the stronger ones went, they'd get left behind. But because we're not living perhaps in such tribal times, you know, the old saying that comes up for me a lot is, you know, it takes a village to rear a child, but we're not living in those village circumstances anymore. So children are not being cared for by a larger community, which may well again, and I like what Mikayla said, because I think, you know, bullying, like so many things, is taken, the word can be, you know, taken out of context or become the new buzzword in a lot of instances. And, you know, one of the things that comes up for me with the political correctness, you know, we're not allowed to say we don't like Sharia law, for example. Sorry, I just said it on air. And
I don't like Sharia law either, especially because I'm a woman. Why would I want it? You know, I find it amazing how in the US a lot of feminist groups support it, and I'm like, did they not realise what it entails for women? It's just stunning. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
but that whole political correctness of what you can and cannot say, or you know, one of the things that again I see as being people being put upon, perhaps rather than bullying as a word, is they want you to not be able to say a child is a boy or a girl. You know, they're gender neutral. I mean, let's stop being ridiculous. My youngest son insisted until he was 2 that he was a girl, and he used to wear his sister's dresses. He had long blonde curly hair, and if you said he was a boy, he'd say, no, I's a girl. And then when he turned 2, he suddenly decided one day, I'm a boy. So when you've got people being offered hormone treatment for 4-year-olds because they believe that they should be a girl and they're a boy, or a boy and they're a girl, you know, where's the whole process of let's be real here, people? You know, what are we doing to a lot of our young people in what I see as pressure and perhaps some form of bullying? You know, you're not allowed in a kindergarten to refer to a child as a boy or a girl. What do you refer to them as then? Do we all have to learn a new language to be politically correct? Because, sorry, I'm not going to. Well, I'm being controversial tonight, Bobby.
Well, I actually think this whole, I think we've already had discussions on this in previous shows, but quite frankly, I think there is only 2 genders and 2 sexes, and they are male and female. I agree with Ben Shapiro, who's a conservative speaker over in the States, that everything else is, it used to be deemed as gender dysphoria and mental illness, and people were treated for it. I think if you make it all the way to you're 18 and you're still thinking that way, then I think you have the right to go and change your body in any which way you want. But I agree with you. I don't think children under 18 should be making any physical changes to their bodies, you know, that can't be, you know, like grow their hair and that's sure do that. But I don't think they should be chopping anything off or adding anything until, you know, after they're a fully grown adult. I mean, there are situations where some boys and girls feel they're trapped in the wrong body. But I think it's more a trendy thing, which is stunning to me at the moment. I just think it's more of a trend because somebody's, you know, it's just there weren't that many transsexuals in the world, or, you know, and now suddenly they're everywhere. So I just think it's a bit suspicious, and I think it's more of a fatty, trendy thing for people to be, and or for them to explore. So that's my feelings. Mikayla, prove us wrong. What do you think?
Oh, I'm not going to prove you wrong on that, because I think, you know, it comes down to the Chinese yin and yang. You know, we've all got male, female traits. So there's definitely that. Yes, I think it's just some of it could be trendy. I'm personally living with 2 teenagers at the moment and love them dearly, but I was saying to a friend of mine the other day that it's like living with wild animals. So and I, like I said, I love them dearly, but you're right, they don't know where they're at, where they're fitting in, because their hormones, they're just all over the shop. I mean, I've watched 2 sort of documentaries, and one where it says that half the brain literally dies off when they're a teenager because they've learned how to do various things like walk and eat and things. And so now they're going through the phase where they go through the adrenaline phase of trying new things, therefore driving a car fast. They don't have the comprehension that if I do this, there's going to be a consequence and this might happen to you. So when you're referring to even a teenager whose brain's going through all this trauma in a sense, apparently that they've even wired up teenagers and their brains are as static as a schizophrenic. So, I look at them and I think you can't make a love you dearly, but even a rational decision on something, and you can look at them funny and all of a sudden they're turning on you, let alone a life-changing decision of, am I male and female and should I be taking these hormones? I think, as you said, you've got to wait till you're a bit older because they've got so much going on biologically that's naturally happening. And I've watched heartbreaking documentaries where they've gone from whatever sex to swapping to the other one a few years after that, going, no, I want to be back to the original one. And basically like, at 14, 15 saying, why did you let me do that back at that age to the parents? So I'm not sure whether it's trendy at the moment. I think buyers and you've got, the TGs and whatever else is. We do have a balance of both. And I think, as you said, you've got to wait to a certain age, though, before things have settled down naturally, hormonally, before you can really go making life decisions to say, right, I'm definitely one or the other, if you're, on the fence about it.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly agree then. So, that's good. Well, the first thing we have agreed on. So let's kick off with the next one. So we'll start with Sheila. Sheila, what is the difference in your mind between bullying and a normal conflict between peers? What takes a normal conflict into the bullying stage? What would you say?
I'd say when one person is insisting that their way is the correct way or the only way. You see a lot of this, to me, again, in relationships, and that can be sibling relationships, it can be couple relationships, and quite often, to veer off a little bit here, where you've got one person who's got narcissistic tendencies or, who will make the other person wrong because that's how they stay in control. Again, I see that as a form of bullying.
Mikayla, how about
the other
you?
Person under pressure.
All right.
Yeah, along those lines, I think it depends on, are you both focused on the same outcome, or is it, no, I want you to do this because that's power that I'm going to get when you do this, or you are definitely putting someone down, which is the intimidation, and then harming them, as in physically deciding to be nasty to them. Well, then that to me, as you said, is a whole different level. And you watch it on the news and stuff, and you wonder whether it gets sensationalized. This bully picked up this kid, and and then you watch this incident and you think, oh, that's just sickening. But are we encouraging it because then we've gone and sensationalized it on the news? So
Yeah.
Exactly. Conflict is one thing, and peers, I think, is an interesting word, because then is that, a discussion between equals, or is it using your strength and influence to intimidate the other person?
I personally think it raises itself from a normal conflict to bullying when you keep going, when no compromise has been met and one or both parties is either threatening or embarrassed, or if physical, if they touched you in any way. And
absolutely.
And that may not be like a punch or a touch. That, you know how some people might just poke you in the chest to make their point, that sort of thing. So they'll just poke, or they'll have their finger close to your face and waving it. I think that's also a form of bullying. I don't like that.
Puffing up your chest and sort of leaning over someone, as you said, whether you're waving the finger or not. It's that I am superior than you, therefore I'm ruffling my feathers and showing you that I am. Absolutely.
It's that presenting like the animal world, isn't it? As Mikayla was saying, ruffling the feathers to make yourself look larger. I had an experience, I think I said to you, Sharon, and some months ago with my grandson living with me, when I said no to him in the car about something, and he started huffing and puffing like a kettle that was about to boil. And I thought, I need to diffuse this because I know how irrational he can be. So let's change the subject. But was I, not scared of him, but cautious of the fact that I'm behind the wheel. I'm on a highway at 100 kilometres, and I have no idea, he's one of those kids who punches walls and so on, whether he's going to punch the windscreen or me. So let's diffuse the situation. So you do see a lot of that in discussion, what should be a discussion that often ends up being one person pretty much demanding to have their way.
Yeah. Yes. I suppose, what about, I'll give you another scenario, ladies. You've probably witnessed this as well. Have you ever been in like a shopping centre and there's a lady behind the register and she's taking crap from a shopper?
Yep.
I've always thought that is like one of the worst forms of bullying, because there's no way the lady behind the register can just run, you know what I mean? She's got to stay there, or he's got to stay there and take it. And because the policy of the company is always the customer is right or whatever, and I found when I've seen situations like that going off, the customer is always seems to be enraged and feels like, and raises their voice. And I've always thought that was like a really cowardly version of bullying. What do you guys think?
Mikayla, you want to go first?
Oh, absolutely, sure. The first thing when you were saying that is, and I might get roasted for this, but are we raising a softer generation? Because you laughed, because we used to be more resilient. Yes, you're right, that's not okay for a customer to intimidate someone, but you used to be able to say, nicely, buddy, you've taken it too far, that's not okay. Now you kind of you don't say that, and therefore they get away with saying various things like, it's the softer kind of approach. I mean, you see it all the time, as in, oh, I don't want to upset my child, so therefore I'll just give in to whatever they want. No, that doesn't mean we go back to the good old smacking them, phase. But there used to be a time when you would say no to your children, and the children wouldn't fall down on the floor and have a tantrum and get their way every time. So, even children learn, if I have a tantrum, or I have to ask 10 times, or even if it's 20 times, I'm going to get what I want. So I remember when the kids were little, and I really had to learn the term, pick your battles. In other words, I'd say to the kids, you know what, I've said no in this incident, and this means no. So you can cry and you can carry on, but I said no. I'm not backing down on this particular incident. And the kids learnt. So I wasn't no all the time, but therefore, when it was no, I don't know, am I going to say yes or am I going to say no? The kids knew, and they'd pick and pick and pick until you said yes. So I just always said, when it was a no, that was it. So do we just take the soft approach that, I'll let the kids get away with that and I don't have to discipline them? Are we not as resilient as we used to be? And therefore, does the person behind the counter, did they get enough training to say, actually, that's not acceptable behaviour and you don't have to put up with that, and are there processes in place that if a customer does do this, you have the right to do various things, as in say, excuse me, I'm just going to go and get my manager or something like that? Do we have those things like that in place to protect our staff?
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because mostly when I've seen those encounters, they've been kind of trapped behind the register, and they'll ring a bell or something, but by the time the manager gets there, the customer's already downloaded on them. You know what I mean? And the bullying kind of come to an end. So I actually, what I wanted to raise that is that to me is like cowardly bullying. What you were talking about with the kids, I've only ever had to smack my kids once. Well, each child has had a big smack on her backside once in their life, and from that moment forward, they knew that if they misbehaved, they would get a smack again. But I've only ever had to do it once, and the threat was enough to carry me right up to, through that terrible toddler phase. So I'm actually very pro-smacking. I don't know about you, Sheila. You probably are. But I am a pro-smacker. I think a lot of manners used to be smacked into people. Sheila's not talking.
They probably were, Sharon. My grandmother used to say as a child that I was a delightful child and I never asked for anything. But I do recall my grandfather saying to my mother, do not smack that child. Way back when. Yes, I did smack my children. But for a long time, there were 5 of them and 1 of me. And sometimes that sharp, short smack, it was a sound, I think, I've got a really loud clap kind of thing, would, shake everyone. Oh, wow, we pushed too far. Mum's just lost her and smacked somebody, so we better all pull ourselves back into gear. But again, I think kids are very good, as Mikayla, sorry, not Leanne, as Mikayla was saying, if you've got that slightest bit of hesitation and they think they can get their own way, they'll push for it. But to come back full cycle to what you were saying, Sharon, and in the supermarket, people tend to, and yes, I think we are becoming, quite soft in a lot of ways. People seem to take it for granted that they're right and the person who's serving them must be wrong. And that they have, that God-given or innate right to voice their opinion or make themselves heard, whether they're right or not. And that's personal.
You're going to let it be the worst.
Just because I believe so, something doesn't necessarily make it true.
Walking out, letting them get the best of you.
Okay, I think we're ready for
I'm not going home.
I think you've got a break.
And I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause.
The day may come when the courage of men fails, but it is not this day.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy.
You're going to work harder than you ever worked before.
But that's fine. We'll just get tougher with it.
If a person grits his teeth and shows real determination,
failure is not an option.
That's how winning is done.
Believe me when I say
we can break this army here
and win just one for the Gipper.
But I say to you, what every warrior has known since the beginning of time,
you've got to get mad.
I mean plumb mad dog mean.
If you would be free men, then you must fight to fulfill that promise. Let us
cut out their living guts
1 inch at a time.
And they will know what we can do.
Let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions.
You're like a big bear, man.
This is your time.
Seize the day.
Never surrender. Victory or death.
That's the Chicago.
Who's with me?
Clap! Clap! Don't let team die! Clap!
All right, let's fly!
And gentlemen in England now abed shall know my name is the Lord. When I tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our Independence Day.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. One world coming together to bring freedom home. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
We're back, Sheila, I think.
Thank you, Bobby. So I think we were talking over the music there, sorry, so I'm told. And you're with Sheila Kennedy, and welcome to the 1%. And the last Thursday of the month, we're having on the first Thursday of the month, Oddities E-Club magazine Spiritual Quandaries show. So my co-host Sharon Ann Rowland and the wonderful Mikayla Holmes joining us this evening. So Revolution Radio, we are listener supported, of course. If you can afford to support the station, we really do appreciate you. And you can do so from the main website. We have donate buttons. We have wonderful things that you can purchase, or you can join the archives, which to me is the gift for someone who has absolutely everything, because you can access the shows of all of the hosts, both studios, in your own time frame and to suit yourself. And basically for the cost of a cup of coffee or a block of chocolate, $5.95 a month. So thank you for being with us this evening. Welcome back, Sharon Ann. Welcome back, Mikayla. And we may have another guest. I'm not quite sure whether Michael will be joining us.
Yes, we'll wait and see. So yes, we'll go to Mikayla for the next one. So the word power is used to describe what drives bullies. What do you think about this idea? And how do you think bullies derive power from their targets?
Great question. So, yes, they do. You see, everything is energy. So no matter what interaction you have with anyone, you gain or give energy. So when a bully is targeting a victim and they are gathering energy from them, whether it's them feeling better about themselves because, as we said before, puffed up their ego that, look, I'm superior to them. I think they can also be known as like energy vampires, as in because they're just sucking the energy out of the victim. I have just finished reading for the umpteenth time, I've read it so many times, Eckhart Tolle's book, The New Earth, where he talks about pain bodies. So some people might not even be aware because it's so unconscious to them that that's what they've learnt, is to gather energy from other people, whether it's a nice way or obviously not in a nice way, when it's I'm going to get your energy by picking on you for this or intimidating you, etc. So yeah, I really do believe that bullies get their power from their victims or their targets because it's the energy they're getting from it, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. That's how I was looking at it too, Mikayla, the exchange of negative energy. And it's, what's it called? There's actually a name for it. I think it's called louche energy, which is like that negative energy that comes from negative acts, which is another story, which we won't talk to tonight. Maybe another time we'll discuss the louche theory. But I feel the same. I feel there must, there's a lot of people at the moment who are exhausted. Have you all noticed that, or is it just me? Like whenever you talk to somebody, it's always like they get home from work and they go straight to bed, or they don't. Not a lot of people are doing things on the weekend anymore, and I think it's because a lot of our energy is being sapped. Maybe by I don't know, something to do with the work that they're doing. If it's not a particularly pro-earth or pro-life type of thing. Are you okay? Is your microphone okay, Mikayla? It keeps on popping in and out.
Oh, does it? I'm sorry. No, I think it's fine. I haven't moved.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay now?
It may not have been you, actually, sweetie. It might be Michael trying to log out. That's cool. Don't worry.
So, can I continue with what you just said? I mean, I think it's really important. I think for so many reasons. We're connected all the time to social media, which means we've got to reply straight away to an email to all of this. We've totally lost touch with nature. We feel that we've just got to be busier because the busier we are, the more we can achieve, etc. And basically, we've lost touch of ourselves, our inner presence, our, you know, when you used to just have that downtime on the weekend, now you've got to be on the go. And I thought it was really interesting. Just before this show, I was watching the news, and I know this goes to America and that, but basically we have a football, the State of Origin was on last night. It's 2 competing teams. And one team, which ended up being the winning team, apparently the coach took them to a park and made them take their shoes off so they could get energy from the earth. And I'm sitting there going, wow, really? You're going to call that a modern thing? I believe that's what's called grounding, and it's what we used to do. But nowadays, we put our shoes on before we leave our house. We never even touch the earth. I mean, so there's just some basic fundamental things that we've lost touch of in this busy society that I don't think has to be that busy. You don't stop and look at a flower anymore. You don't even just take that basic, take your shoes off, go for a walk on the beach. And like I said, wow, amazing. These guys, the football players, took their shoes off and got the energy from the grass.
Well, it's like the modern food. I think it's called, Sheila might know this, there's a camera. Is it called a Carillion camera? Which it takes a photo of things, people, or anything organic, and it will show you the energy surrounding the object.
Carillion photography, yep.
That's it. What? Just say it again for the listeners.
Carillion photography. Valentino and I'm trying to think of his wife's name. It's a lot of what the work I do is based on.
Yes. And basically what was happening, Mikayla, is people would take photos of organic food and compare it to GMO food, and they found that the organic food still had energy surrounding it. So basically we take that energy into our bodies when we eat that organic pear or apple, but when they photographed the GMO food, there was no energy. So basically you're just eating nothing.
It's dead food, yeah.
Dead food. And basically, I think this is why everyone's so tired, because I think everyone, we used to get a lot of our energy from, like, as you said, out in nature, going for walks, doing picnics and playing with the kids in the park. And now what's happened is we live in houses. We live in sterile little boxes, you know, which are hoovered and cleaned to, you know, with chemicals. And basically, we don't touch nature, so we get no energy from nature. We don't eat organic food because a lot of people can't afford organic food. It's you know, it's quite expensive for a normal family to go out and buy just organic. Where's the energy coming from? So what happens is the energy is then, you know, you start sucking it from the people around you that have it. So basically, that's why the whole families just end up sitting on a couch at night watching TV instead of, say, going bowling or, you know, going out and doing something physical. That's what I think where the world has gone wrong. My theory. So, what do you think, Sheila, about power and energy? Do you want me to reread the question?
No, it's fine. I totally agree with Mikayla. I talk about the energy vampire stuff all the time. And I say, you know, some people produce their own energy and other people do not. You may love those people dearly, but after they've visited, you feel exhausted or tired or drained. And I often draw it as people being in their own energy bubble and one putting out lots of energy and the other one not. And they tend to create like a little vacuum cleaner pipe and drain your energy. So you might have really loved seeing them, but you're really pleased to see them go home. And if you start to protect your own energy or be more aware of your own energy and not giving it away or allowing it to be drained, people often do not like it, and they will quite often pick a fight or tell you that their new best friend is nicer to them, etc., etc. So That's one part of it. I think the other part, I think, also is we're so surrounded by things like electromagnetic frequencies, Wi-Fi. Almost everyone you see, including small children, have got a mobile phone in their hand. I work at home as you do, Sharon, and I often have 3 computers running. I don't have television, but, I've got a phone, I've got computers, I've got iPads, things like that. So there's a whole range of outside influences on our energy. And I think it was last week I was saying we continued Bobby's Roundtable on, I feel I effectively get about 13 hours out of a 24-hour day. So I have a fairly high expectation of myself, work-wise, and the day doesn't always go the way that I plan. Like Mikayla was saying before, have a list and tick things off so I can say, yes, I've achieved that, no, I haven't. But, you sort of go with the flow as well, because you are so accessible to people with the internet and mobile phones. And I posted something or shared a link the other day that said just because it shows that I'm online doesn't mean I'm actually sitting in front of the computer, or that I'm available to, reply to whatever you've posted immediately. It just means that my computer's switched on. But we seem to have that expectation of one another in many instances. As you said, you've got an email, you've got to answer it immediately, or reply to someone's message immediately, or you then get how come you didn't answer? Well, I was actually doing something else, like walking on the grass with bare feet, or something like that. So, yeah.
My personal pet hate with emails are people that request a read receipt. I think that's just petty.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. When people do that, I just do it. I just ignore it completely. I just ignore it it's kind of like it's the red flag to me. It's like, okay, I'm not touching that for at least 2 days. Because I just think that's rude. I don't know.
It should only be used in a work sense where you absolutely need to be 100% sure for literally almost life-threatening situations like the person has received it. So I'm with you. It's rude on a sort of everyday sort of thing, but I have to admit that every once in a while it's like I need to tell my boss that this has been received at this company. And so there is a point to use it, but you're right, it gets over-abused. And so the odd time I use it, I got to use it. I need to use it. I need that confirmation. That's entirely different.
Yeah. So, Sheila, do you think bullies might have problems of their own that lead them to target certain people, or do you think it's just they feel the energy drain and it drives them?
Look, I'm sure a lot of them do, and quite often it can be their own inadequacies, or I talk, as you know, Sharon, about the bones in the skull, the cranial plates. So if your right cranial plate's pushed in, even minutely, which can be birth process, childhood accident, vaccine damage, it can be difficult to see a future, difficult to see the consequence of actions. Someone would stay close to mum or a family member, may not be comfortable in the school situation, can be depressed from birth and never be aware of it, and so on. So quite often I think you've got people who have perhaps poor social skills who turn to bullying because it's a way of being seen or being heard. Not necessarily a good way, but, it's even negative attention is attention, isn't it?
Yeah, I was about to say that myself. It's that whoever coined that phrase got it right, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Mikayla, do you think bullies have problems of their own that lead them to target certain people?
Oh, absolutely, and I agree with Sharon, Sheila. Sorry, with any attention, whether it's positive or negative, it's still attention. Agreed with you, and everyone's got stuff going on in their lives. You don't need to vomit all over everyone else to sort of share it, though. But you're right, whether they know it or they're not, they are sharing their problems by saying, by being a bully, by drawing their energy, etc. a story that goes with that is my daughter was probably around 11, and for a whole year this one particular kid had just been quite nasty to her, and I kept saying, it's not you, it's this, this poor other kid. And I knew that various things going on in their lives. I said, it's not you, but she'd be in tears and it's hurtful. I said, I get it's hurtful what she's saying. But the point of the story is at the very last day of the term, at the end of the year, this kid came up to my daughter and said, by the way, I know I've been horrible to you all year, and I'm sorry, but it's not about you. It was the stuff I was going through. And my daughter came home and you could just see the weight lifted off her shoulders. And it wasn't so much, Mum, you're right. It was sort of, whoa, it really did put it in perspective. That not only had the kid known she was being nasty, but had actually acknowledged it. And it really turned my daughter's eyes around to go, actually, when someone says this to me, is this about me or is it about them? And so I was like, wow, you've learnt that at that age. That's amazing.
It's interesting. You just reminded me of something that happened to me at like this health resort a few years ago. Have you both heard of Quandaries? It's up in the mountain area.
No.
Up in South Wales. Well, it's you kind of go away for a weekend and they feed you actually they don't feed you a lot of food. They feed you good food, but in small quantities, and you have a full program of things to do. And one of the programs was this dance therapy, which was basically you leapt around for about an hour, but you felt really good at the end of it. And then following it, you sit down and you do a talking circle where there'd be a talking stick, and you'd all talk about and the lady said everyone needs to purge something. And so it went through to there's probably about 20 of us in the group, and it got to me and I purged, and I was only about the 6th person to do it, so there was still another 14 people to go. Anyway, the lady next to me took the stick and purged everything from child abuse to 4 rapes to her brother's death, her father's infidelity, and her mother's suicide or something. And it went on for, my God, I didn't know what to do because I was right next to her too. And I'm sure, I think we had an hour and a half to do the session, and we'd already done the dance therapy for an hour. And then it was supposed to just be a finish up, let's just get rid of something, quick, and it ended up being like this mass, everyone basically, depressed for the rest of the afternoon. And I remember thinking the next day that, what actually, I couldn't actually work out what had actually happened. What would you ladies describe that as? I mean, I know we're talking about bullying here, and I wouldn't label it a bullying as part A, but it's per se, but it's she hijacked the session from everybody else to do their purging. So what is that? I've always wondered, it doesn't quite fit bullying, but it's something else, isn't it?
Well, she had a captive audience, didn't she?
Yeah.
And perhaps a non-judgmental audience of people who were on a similar path of wanting to move forward.
That was the whole point of the weekend. It was basically to set new goals for the future and to work out the weekend was to work out what wasn't working for you and to move forward in life.
So my question would be is if you felt flat, that evening and the next day, what did she get from you? And she got your energy from you as well as everyone from the group. And, it's heartbreaking what you said, and I don't want to, make light of anything that happened to her, but oh, woe is me, I'm the victim, and I'm, as you said, captive audience. I've now drawn your energy and brought you down levels, but I feel better about myself because I've just gone and shared all this stuff that I've got off my chest.
Yeah, and she traumatized. There was 3 other ladies that came up to me that afternoon and basically said, I'm absolutely stuffed and I feel awful, and and it was weird because we went from this complete high of the dance therapy where we'd been acting around and laughing and bumping into each other to like we'd gone from the biggest high to the lowest low. It was, yeah. And I call that energy vampirism now. And I've only actually worked that out because of what you just said, Mikayla, and you, Sheila, that's what actually happened that day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she sort of felt a bit better, and you guys all went, oh, and when you've done that,
great.
you've passed energy. Actually, I've got a question for Sheila, if that's all right, sort of along those lines. So you were talking about protecting yourself before, and I've tried this a number of ways, and I wonder if this would have made a difference for you, Sharon, in this situation and I haven't struggled with it, but it's not sort of sat with me until literally a few weeks ago. You know how you sort of protect yourself with either white light or pink light? Well, someone said, why don't you protect yourself with clear light? And I went, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, because people can see your white light or they can see your pink light, so therefore they can probably see your energy. So by using the clear light, it means that in a sense you're transparent, so they can't be seeing you to then draw the energy from you. And I was interested to know what your view was that, because I've been trying it for a bit and gone, I really like that. It's kind of sitting with me. So yes, I've got my colors of my chakra and I'm protecting myself sort of internally with the pink light, as in protecting my love or, protecting myself. But the outside layer is white. Therefore, I'm not giving my energy away because you can't see it. I wonder what your thoughts on clear light is.
It's not something I've ever heard suggested, Mikayla, so thank you. That's an interesting one to look at. It's about a 6 on my fingers out of 10, 0 being the lowest, 10 the highest. So it's right at this moment, not having looked at it, it's not a really high process that I would perhaps be looking for. I often spoke to people years ago about putting yourself in a bubble. When you're having a shower the morning, imagine the water in the shower is white light. Put yourself in a bubble, coat that with pink, gold, silver, and if you really want a very protective bubble, platinum. And that allows positive in, positive out, negative out, because we all have negative thoughts. As I was saying earlier, in the first hour, if someone passes you on the freeway and cuts you off, and, we go into that idiot or whatever, and then we think, oh, well, maybe, moving back into light rather than shadow, perhaps there was a problem, or, maybe I'm misjudging them and so on. But again, the more light you shine, Sheila version, the more bugs you attract. So if you imagine water flood or something in the summer and you're having a barbecue, so people may not be aware of what it is that you're shining. They just know that you've got something they haven't got, or they're attracted to it. And I think that's where, especially supermarkets and shopping centres, because our aura tends to move through one another's, and they can be slightly sticky on the outside. So you can be picking up other people's stuff as well. And that connection with you, that you may not necessarily be aware of someone taking your light or wanting your light. But again, if it's someone that you really know well, sometimes they can tune in and think, oh, well, Mikayla's always got plenty of energy, I'll just borrow a bit of her. It's not necessarily a conscious thought, although I do know people who do that. But again, as I said, the more light we shine, the more other people want from us. So in putting clear, are you dulling that light, or are you wrapping it, say, like in Glad wrap, so that it's seen but it's not touchable? Might be another way of looking at it.
Yeah, and it just depends on situations. As you're right, you can't walk around the whole time like that. I just mean it's sort of, you, as you said, in situations where you think, hold on a sec, I'm in a situation where I don't want to give my energy away, or wow, I'm really in a conversation with someone who I know is trying to drain energy from me. So therefore, yeah, it's not to be used all the time. Absolutely, because, you know, we're here to share energy and pass it, and, you know, we need those social interactions, absolutely. But I was just wondering in the situation with Sharon, she could have sat there going, whoa, I'm not giving my energy away. Yes, this woman's talking and delving so much about her life. I'm going to sit here in my protective bubble that she can't draw my energy from. And I love your platinum. I've written it down. Thank you for that. And sort of that combination of maybe sometimes using the white light and maybe platinum at other times.
Yeah, no, I like that too. You know what I do now, Mikayla, which I find is quicker than trying to get the light going. I just imagine like a really, really, really good-looking Gabriel, Archangel Gabriel, comes behind me and puts his wings around me. And it's so much quicker to actually get the protection in place. And also he looks like David, you know, Michelangelo's David, so that helps too. You know, who wouldn't want that coming quick? But I'm going to I'm going to make him platinum now and see how that goes.
With the rainbow around it.
Can I throw you a wobbly here, Sharon?
Can you say that again?
Can I throw you a wobbly here?
Oh, is it about sorry, I said Gabrielle. I meant Michael, Archangel Michael before. Yeah, go on, throw me a wobbly.
So why do you think, just from curiosity, from my perspective, that angels have wings?
Oh, because I was raised Catholic.
And I was raised Church of England, yep, I know. So from your perspective, do you believe that angels have wings?
Earth angels, no, but like avenging angels or the archangels, definitely.
Okay.
So, but I know there's, like, I think I've met a few earth angels, and no, they just look like us. In fact, you know, very ordinary, very plain. So I've been quite surprised. They're the ones that you have a conversation with and you kind of have epiphanies, and then you turn around and they're not there anymore. That's what I call an earth angel. Have you both had that?
Very, very much so over the years. I actually said in the previous show, talking to John and Michael, that for me, I personally do not see angels with wings. I believe Michelangelo was the first person to paint the cherubs with wings in the Sistine Chapel. So it's why a lot of Doreen Virtue stuff's never resonated for me, because of that whole, you know, depiction of angels with wings.
Mm. Yeah, I suppose I only see it in kind of like the archangels and above, but yeah, not the ones that kind of do all the work. It's kind of like Scientology, you know. It's like only the Tom Cruises would have the wings, whereas the slaves down below don't get the wings.
I like that analogy, Sharon.
I just read. There's a really good documentary on Netflix at the moment on Scientology. So I actually saw that yesterday. That's why I'm quoting them. So I'll probably get sued for that, mind you. Sued for saying that. Okay. So Mikayla, did Sheila answer your thought?
Oh, absolutely, and I love it. And then it's just led into angels and whether angels have wings. And I mean, I personally have an attraction to blue butterflies, and I like the thought, whether angels do have wings or they're not, that, you know, even like a butterfly, it's just got to go through some, you know, I think it's just amazing how he starts as a caterpillar and they literally turn into soup in the cocoon before they, you know, wings emerge. So I guess to me, the whole image of kind of wings is that sort of freedom, although we need to be grounded, but at the same time, it's nice to kind of know that you've got the freedom of sort of floating around to be a cloud. So whether angels have wings or not, I kind of like the image that they're sort of free floating and not stuck in one place. So, yeah, they totally led on to whole different topics.
Yes, how gorgeous my angel is, and you both want him.
Oh.
The reason I always bring David is I think in 2006 I spent 3 hours staring up at him in Florence, and it was quite an amazing experience. You know, I still, if I were to look back on my life, that would be one of the most content and like at peace moments I've ever felt. Have you ladies seen him in Florence? The original?
No.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
What did you think, Mikayla? Were you a bit overawed?
I travelled around Europe by myself for 3 months, and I had so many moments of experiences, and yes, that was one of them. But the moment you mentioned that story, the one that really got to me was I remember sitting in the Sacré-Cœur in Paris on sort of the top of the hill, and I had timed it just right that for some reason there was a choir all dressed in white was sort of singing, and I couldn't understand what they were singing, but it just didn't matter. I just remember having this moment before I'd even read a lot about, you know, being in the present moment. I just had this wow feeling, and I can imagine what you had, you know, looking at the angel is I just had this moment, you know, and I just sat there for I don't know how long, same, and just enjoyed the experience, and just, yeah, indescribable, isn't it, when you have those moments, no matter where you are, when you feel the energy of what's around you, as well as what you're looking at, as well as the smells and the sounds, and you just go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so back to it. Sheila, what can a target of a bully do to end the torment? What would you recommend?
Sorry, Sharon, could you repeat that for me?
What would you recommend to the target of a bully to end the torment? What would you tell your kids to do if they came home and told you they were being bullied?
Allowing my kids, my eldest son's 50 this year, so it was a long time ago, and my children were quite bullied at school, 2 of them especially because they had learning difficulties. So when you suggest, as we were talking about before, you know, with you, Sharon, you know, fight back, yes, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just exacerbates the situation. We often say to children, if you've got a problem, go to the teacher. Quite often the teacher doesn't want to know. You know, there's supposed to be playground monitors or playground teachers or whatever, especially nowadays. But how much are they actually taking notice of? How much are they turning a blind eye? So is there a tried and true thing that you can say to a child who is being bullied? I really do not think so. I think it's going to depend very, very much on the individual situation and the individuals involved.
Mikayla, what would you say to a child if they came home and said they were being bullied?
First of all, don't show the bully it's even bothering you for a start. And that has worked with my kids when there has been, you know, and they've just gone, okay, whatever. And then the bully's gone, oh, I didn't get the reaction I wanted, and then has moved on to somebody else. Now, that doesn't mean that's okay. They target somebody else because they should learn otherwise. But basically, I've said to them, don't show that it bothers you, because the more you're in tears or, you know, upset that it bothers you, the more they want to target you. And the other thing is, can you agree with the bully? So if they say, and, you know, we've all had it, as we said, you know, if they sort of go, oh, you know, I always had, you know, you've got these skinny legs, they're like a chicken. And I go, oh, okay, yeah. And they go, oh, it's not the response I wanted. And you go, well, I agree with you. And they go, well, there's no point fighting with you because you've just agreed with what I've said. And you go, well, okay then. That's a simple sort of version of it. So just don't show that it bothers you, and you can shut them down by sort of agreeing with them, like if they and turn it around, like I sort of learned without realizing it that actually I'm the one that's having fun because you guys get all supervised and I get to sit and have my lunch break all by myself. And they went, oh, I want to be in your shoes.
I've had it happen once with each of my daughters, and the first time, what did I do? It had been going on a while, and she tried a few different strategies herself and to no avail. So I then looked up on the school directory and rang the parents of the girl and said, listen, your kid's doing this. I want you to talk to her tonight and get her to fix it. If it's still going on in a week, I'll report it to the school. I said, but you've got a week to fix your kid, basically. And it worked. The parents sat down and said, I've just had so-and-so's mum ring. You know, are you doing this? And if you are, you've got to stop it. So the second time, the kid kept doing it anyway. And in fact, I think it exacerbated the situation. And I then had to speak to the coach. It was on a sporting team. And the coach then benched the kid. And that worked. She then started to treat her a lot, you know, like a best friend, basically, because she wanted to get back on the team. So I don't know. I think I'm with you too, that it's what suits the situation. And maybe, as Sheila said earlier, maybe punching them in the nose will suit one type of kid, whereas, you know, talking to them directly in a civilized manner, like you suggested, Mikayla, would suit another situation. I know that I was, you know, I couldn't believe that it was still going on in schools, but apparently, from what I've been reading lately, when I did the research for tonight, it's still pretty rife. So again, I think it all comes back to humans are not nice. You know? We're just not nice to each other, are we? So.
No, we're not.
I think you can take it another level, Sharon, if you think children in this day and age. And I was actually talking about this to someone a couple of days ago. And so many of the television shows that children watch or the games they play, there's a lot of, you know, the nasty person and the good person. And, you know, the bully is quite often made out to be, you know, someone who's more powerful. I know one of the, because I don't have television, so I only see it when I go and visit the kids, but one of the shows that my small grandchildren watch, and I think it's Dora the Explorer, but don't quote me, please, there's a fox that pinches things, and it's made out to be a big joke. You know, why would you be encouraging children to steal? Because this fox steals. So that's always sat sort of not well with me. You know, why aren't we sharing something? You know, some of the shows probably do have some, you know, good points to them, but some of them are actually quite dreadful.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about they show the bully is powerful, because a lot of the Mean Girls and those type of movies, they show the bully as being the top alpha, the most beautiful girl in the school, dating like the jock of the baseball team. I've probably mixed my sport metaphors there because I have no idea about any sport. But you're right that the bully's always seen as this alpha male or alpha female, and maybe if they stopped portraying them that way, it would be better.
I believe so, because so many of these movies and things that kids watch, from my perspective, give them a false understanding or a false appreciation of what's real and what's okay. But because you've seen it on television, it must be true. So if you tell them that, no, it's actually not true, but it is because I saw it, and, you know, this actress or that actress or someone, actor said, so it's got to be true. How would you know? Because you don't watch television, kind of thing. So I just... I question what we're actually programming, if we use that term, our young ones with.
Oh, yeah. You can see it everywhere. I mean, the whole PC culture is programming as well. I mean, not. I think the labeling of people is divisive, but you see it everywhere. People are always being grouped by identity now, and it's not good. I mean, when do we stop thinking about people as individuals and judging them on the individual, not on, the fact that they're a certain color or they're a certain sex or, God, a certain gender now,
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's wrong. I mean, you can have friends of all colors, all races, all cultures, and there'll be nice ones and there'll be absolute assholes in there. You know what I mean? It's
totally agree.
So you can't do this group identity thing, because everybody knows that, there's good and bad in everything, in every group that you break down.
Yes.
And it's annoying that it happens. We used to call this stereotyping, and it used to be a bad thing. But now they call it group identity and they promote it. Maybe I'm getting old. Am I getting old?
Well, if you are, I'm getting older.
Yeah, we all are.
I just look sometimes and think, isn't this logical? Isn't this obvious? And then I realise it isn't. It isn't obvious and it isn't logical to people now. And, that worries me, because I'm going to be old one day and they'll be looking after me. Shit.
No, you've got to have the Sheila version, Sharon. And my second son, who tells me he's my favourite child, and I do not have favourites, I might have told you this before, brought me one of those old-fashioned milk cans that he picked up at a garage sale. And he said, I've got something in the back of the car for you, Mother. I thought you might like to add your collection of stuff, you gather up. And I said, oh, that's nice of you, darling. And he said, oh, look, it was $20, and I figure I'm probably going to inherit it back in the long run anyway. And I just smiled sweetly and said, but darling, you forget that I'm planning on outliving you, and I've got my eye on everything in your shed. Because you've got some great tools. And he was like gobsmacked. I've never thought about that. You might actually outlive me, Mother. Well, yes, I kind of plan on it. Because, my children have no belief in what I do, or the fact that, we do not have to die at 60 or 70 because the government tells us we're going to. So I've sort of shared that with a few people lately, and you sort of see them shake their head and go, oh, really? Yeah, well, maybe you could outlive him, So.
Definitely. I would not put it past you. That's for sure. So, Mikayla, how do you think bullies target their victims? What do you think they look for? What are the personality traits, I suppose, or is it opportunity?
Oh, exactly, where the opportunities are, where they can fundamentally get power from them, so that the energy from them, that they feel better and they've put someone else down. So I think they do target their victims, absolutely. Because going back to, as we've said all night, the strong alpha, male or females, whatever, they're going to see that, and they're not going to pick on someone they could pick on someone that's going to challenge them, but that wouldn't be a bullying. That would be more of a peer sort of type thing. We're having a bit of a conflict, over and done with. But to pick on someone and to really, in a sense, push their buttons, they're getting something from it, whether it's stealing their lunchbox, their lunch money, or whatever it is. I'm getting something from you, and I will pick on you to get that.
Sheila, how do you think bullies target their victims?
I think if we look at a generalisation, Sharon, they're generally someone who's smaller, weaker perhaps. They're not going to pick on someone who's going to be their own strength. The old thing of pick on someone your own size.
Yeah.
It might be someone who's more perhaps emotional or not as energetically stable, that can be sort of tipped over the edge quite easily. The tears or the fear, because fear, of course, is an energy that, as you said, a lot of things feed on earlier. So it's, they're not going to pick on the biggest kid in the school or the toughest kid, are they? They're going to want someone they see as being lesser than themselves.
I think bullies, yeah. I think sometimes though bullies pick on people for jealous reasons. So because they might have a quality or a gift or a skill which makes them stand out. Like if they're a talented musician or they're talented at a sport. I've seen that before too, where the jealousy will spark some bullying. It's usually not on the same scale though. I agree with you. I think the majority are what you've both described, where they go for the little person, the person that's not able to defend themselves. Yeah. So do you think that society has promoted bullying, Mikayla? Social media, music, videos, movies, TV?
Yes. Full stop. Yes. So whether you believe in the law of attraction or whatever, at the end of the day, when you call it an anti-bullying campaign, you're still promoting bullying. So like the child, when you say, don't drop the spoon, the kid only hears drop the spoon. So I always used to kind of phrase it, hold on to the spoon. So therefore, I really do think, because we've got all these, five things you need to do when you're being bullied, and that's to stand up for yourself, talk to the teacher, do all these sorts of things. And like I said, even using the words anti-bullying, you're promoting bullying, even by using the word. So, I don't have the right word for it, but, why don't we sort of turn around and say, be nicer to each other and promote being nice instead of using the word even bullying?
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree with that.
And then I haven't even mentioned the social media side of it and the news sensationalizing it and all the other stuff that goes with it. Absolutely.
I mean, social media has really shown its dark side in regarding bullying, hasn't it? I mean, that's when everyone kind of sees social media as a real problem on the bullying and, using, embarrassing people, in certain ways. What do you think, Sheila? Do you think social media has actually set us back a few, generations?
Oh, absolutely, Sharon. It allows us to interact with people around the world as we do. I mean, the fact that we're on, Revolution Radio, we advertise on social media that we're going to be on, we're using the airwaves, the same as social media are doing. But as Mikayla was saying, when you use the word bullying, you're giving it power, aren't you? If we're not using that word, we would be not empower. Wouldn't necessarily be disempowering it, but we would not be empowering it. And I think, again, with social media, where children used to go, we're talking children, used to go home away from school and they had that respite time, and then, they'd go back the next day and the bully might be waiting for them. Now that it's 24 hours a day, because it's not only what's in your face at school, it's what's being said on social media as well. And this is where so many of these young people are suiciding, because they're just not coping with that level of bullying, if you like, or pressure that they're getting.
That's a good point. You're right. It is 24 hours a day now. I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. It's awful.
Yeah.
And can I just add from personal experience, though, that, you've got these fabulous things called Snapchat, and that's great. So you can post something and the photo's going to disappear, and on it goes. And so same with, messaging and things, that it's therefore I think kids have the mentality, I will post this, it'll be gone in a short while because you only get to see it once, and therefore I'm okay with that. And there'll be no repercussions. They can't see that there's repercussions. But what can happen very quickly and escalate, as we said, overnight, is a group chat can form, and you invite people to the group chat. So you don't even have to accept the invite to get into it. You're just part of it because you're on, say, Instagram or Snapchat. So all of a sudden there's a group chat and their group mentality comes into it, and all of a sudden kids just think, because they don't think, and they've got no long-term consequences of, if I do this, there's going to be this action. And before you know it, this thread has gone of loads and loads of comments, and it can be really damaging, especially to certain people or their reputations and that, and it can all escalate literally within 12 hours. And before you know, you've gone back to school the next day, and it's happening now. I can put my hand on my heart and say, you know, my kids have been involved in that, and my kids have handed their phones over and said, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want even be seen to be opening the messages on this chat. And overnight they'll get to school the next day. Well, you didn't reply. So I asked you whether you liked me or not, and you didn't reply to that. So because you didn't reply, you don't like me. You're like, what? I never even saw the messages. And it can escalate so quickly. It's just insane.
Yep.
It's sad too. It really is. So, Sheila, what are some of the social problems people face today that contribute to bullying others?
I would say low self-esteem for a lot of people. Perhaps looking for acceptance, you know, being seen to be tough or being seen to be strong, to set them apart. Quite often it can be home life. You know, if a child's not feeling good or being listened to or understood at home, I think that can have a huge impact as well. And in a lot of instances, unfortunately, I think it's some peer group pressure of wanting to be seen. You know, a lot of kids who perhaps have low self-esteem may want to put themselves on the front line of being acknowledged or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I might jump to the last question because we're going to be wrapping up shortly, and I want to cover this one, and then I'll go back to the others. Mikayla, should you intervene if you see another person being bullied? And if so, how would you handle the situation?
Yes, I think you should intervene. How you handle it, I think, does base on the situation. And we've touched on this before, whether it's contacting the parent, is that appropriate for this particular incident? Sometimes you know that it's coming from the parent as well as, you know, as you said, the home life. Sometimes it could be a matter of you literally need to go and get the teacher immediately to diffuse the situation. So the answer is yes. Sometimes you're better off not being seen to be the one to diffuse the situation. So therefore, as I said, it's okay to go and get the teacher. It's okay if you in the supermarket see someone bullying someone behind the counter to go and get the manager and say, you know what, that guy's not being very nice to somebody else. Yes, I think you can intervene. You don't have to be the one that necessarily stands up to the bully, though, because I think in some situations that's not such a good idea and then can put yourself at risk.
Mm. Sheila, what do you think? Should you intervene if you see another person being bullied?
Well, for me, like Mikayla, I would, but because I'm staying with friends, as I said, and the news was on the other night, there was a New South Wales policeman who actually died intervening in someone else being attacked. Mm. So, you know, it's that catch-22, I guess. Do you or don't you? Are you bringing the bully's, ire, if you like, onto you rather than because you've distracted them from the person that they are bullying or attacking on some level? And are you going to make things worse as well? It's a split-second decision, I believe, Sharon. And quite often you probably would have to make it based on the specific circumstances that you found yourself in.
Yeah, I think with children, I have intervened in the past and I've stopped the bullying. And I've just kind of looked at the bully and said, is this how you've been raised? To take... You know, and I've kind of shamed them, I suppose, which is probably politically incorrect of me to do, but, you know, that's how I've handled that. In a situation where if there's violence involved, I probably keep my distance but yell out something like, I've called the police, they're on their way. Yep. Because I think that may make them run, you know?
Yep. Or perhaps give them pause to halt.
Yeah. So, and then I'm still far enough away to leg it if they turn, if they start to chase me. So, but I think any normal, decent person would always intervene, or call the police or do something, don't you?
I'd say probably the majority, not necessarily everybody.
You know, it's funny. Do you remember when Princess Diana died and they introduced a law? I'm not sure which country they introduced it in. Basically saying that if you are a bystander, you have to give assistance to if somebody's in an accident. And I thought it was amazing. And that was because of the photographer. The photographer just climbed into the wreck and took a photo instead of helping her.
Yes.
And which was despicable. And I thought at the time to myself, and that was like back in 97, has society got